So this is my journey of making sourdough bread, and I'm trying to make a sandwich bread. This is my pre-ferment. I wish I had started it recording earlier, but I just happened to think about it. So I mixed about a half a cup of my sourdough starter, about 3 cups of flour. No, yeah, 3 cups of flour, 2 cups of warm water, and 2 cups of sourdough starter, I'm sorry, and mixed it up and left it overnight to pre-ferment. And I have mixed here 4 tablespoons of butter melted with 4 tablespoons of honey and 3 cups of milk. Now, I don't have any milk on hand other than powdered milk, so I mixed up some powdered milk, but I also add a little bit of yogurt to it to make it to 3 cups. And you bring it up to about 110 degrees. I actually got mine a little too hot, so I've had to let it cool. So I'm about to add my ferment and my milk mixture into my batter bowl. All right, so I'm gonna pour this in here. And then I'm gonna have to put the phone down or my camera down to add my pre-ferment in it. Isn't that pretty? Oh, the bubbles. Oh my goodness. Good sourdough starter. All right, so I got to add it to my mixer bowl, and I'm sorry I voiced over this because the mixer is so loud. And you let it come together really good, and then you add more flour. So it doesn't really come together until you start adding flour, and here I'm just going to add, to begin with, about 5 cups of flour and allow it to come together. Now, I have had people criticize me for measuring flour by scooping it, but bread making is very different than other baking. It's more of a feel than it is exact measurements. So we're going to start with, it should be somewhere in the range of 8 total cups and possibly 9. Okay, this is 8 cups of flour, and it'll start kneading together and pulling from the sides, and we just let it knead for about 10 minutes. This is starting to come together really well. If it's not pulling from the sides very well, then you can add a little bit more flour, just a little at a time. I think we wound up with about 9 to 9.5 cups. And we just let it continue to knead. You're actually better off erring on the side of caution and kneading it more rather than adding too much flour. I wound up adding a 9th cup, and I think even about another 4th cup to a half a cup of flour. I did have to slow down the mixer though, because it was starting to make flour fly over the counter and making a mess. But we'll let it knead here for about a total of 10 to 20 minutes. The kneading process, and the longer you knead it, helps to bring the gluten together. And the gluten is, and it sounds like glue, and basically it's bread glue. And it brings those proteins together and allows it to form a softer crumb and a more elastic dough. And I stopped it for just a minute so I can kind of scrape the sides a bit from where the flour isn't mixing really well. Well, it appears that I forgot to add my salt, just like Ruthanne did, but that's okay. You're supposed to add it into the milk and butter mixture, but I'm going to go ahead and add it here, which is about 2 tablespoons for this quadruple batch, and it does just fine. We're going to test it. It's a little sticky. So I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more flour, not a whole cup. This is 9 cups right here. So I'm just going to add a wee bit. This dough is supposed to be very soft and elastic, so you don't want to add too much flour, because if you do, it will it'll have a stiff crumb. Although I've sped up the video on here, I actually only turned the speed up on my mixer, which is a KitchenAid Professional HD, and I only turned it up to 2, which is perfect for dough. Oh wow, that's pretty. So it's a little sticky, but that's okay. It's still nice and soft, and as I stretch it, it still holds its shape. So I think we're done with this. So we're going to put it in a bowl and let it rise. I've got my big stainless steel bowl, and I like to spray mine with just a little bit of oil so it doesn't stick so bad. So we're going to put the dough in the bowl. Wow, isn't that pretty? It's nice and stretchy, and it's heavy, so I gotta stop a minute. So anyway, I'm lightly dusting my hands with flour so I can work it around. It is a little sticky, and that's okay. I got this idea from Kate at Homesteading with the Zimmermans. Now you want it a little sticky is fine. It's a little more sticky than what I wanted it, so I'm adding just a little bit more flour on my hands to keep it from sticking to the bowl, because our humidity today here is actually about 98%. So when you're working with bread dough, humidity does make a difference. And although I want this kind of sticky to maintain a very soft crumb, I don't want it to stick to the bowl too much. But anyway, I work it a little bit with my hands. You can even kind of pull and stretch like you do with other sourdough recipes. All you're doing is helping to develop that gluten protein chain. And it actually helps to aerate the dough. So we're going to, I love sticky dough. It makes for a very, very crumb. So let me see here. Still a little too sticky. I'm going to be able to pick this up and kind of form it a little bit. There we go. All right, so we got it formed pretty good. It's still a little sticky, but that's okay. We can scrape it off. We're going to let this rest. I'm going to cover it with some saran wrap. And as Kate says, there's 2 things that you need for dough to rise, and that's heat and humidity. Now, my house is set to about 68 degrees, so it may take it a little bit longer for it to rise, but that's okay. I'm off today, and I have time to make sure I get beautiful bread. Alright, I'm about to make a mess on my stove. But, alright. Alright, this has been proofing. I turned the oven light on. Isn't it beautiful? I turned my oven light on in my oven and just set it in there, and it's been rising now for about 2 hours, so that's good. So we're going to pour it out here. Dust my hands really good. pretty. So I'm going to use my rubber spatula because I don't know where my plastic scraper is. But we're going to out here on the stove and hope for the best. Oh, this smells so good. Oh my goodness. I hope it turns out good. I didn't start out sourdough bread. I started out making dinner rolls. And they actually didn't turn out the way I wanted them, but they turned out good. They were all gone. That's sticking. That's all right. It's a little stickier than probably what it needs to be, but that's okay. I got flour down. It's being added to it. It's a really soft, elastic dough. So that's good. All right. So I'm just going to kind of, we're going to see how to set my scale here. Tear it. We're going to see how many grams. I'm going to try to do 4 loaves because this, I did quadruple, I think her name is Ruthanne on Homesteading with the Zimmermans. Now, she got this recipe from a lady named Kate who has this printed recipe on her blog site, and I will post the link. We're going to see how much these quarters weigh. So I want the loaves to be as even as possible, although I've got 2 pans I think that are 9 by 5 and then 3 that are 8 by 4. So look at that, isn't that beautiful? Gorgeous. Okay, so what she did is, let's see, I'm gonna grease my pans first. Now, she used tallow. I do not have any tallow. I do have Baker's Secret. Which I know everybody says is not good for you, but that's what I use for cakes. And it releases them really well. I think I'm going to put all these in metal pans. And just not a stoneware. Alright, so when she gets started doing this, she pressed this out into a rectangle. And what this does, it also helps to get rid of some of the air bubbles. And you want some, but you don't want any real big ones because you don't want a hole in your bread when you're eating peanut butter and jelly sandwich, because the jelly will flop through. Peanut butter will plug the hole. Right, she takes it, folds it corner to corner to form a triangle, and then corner to corner again, and then slowly forms a roll and pinches it off and lays it in her pan. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these back in the oven with the oven light on and let them rise a bit more. We're going to put it through a second rise, and then we'll do that. I'm going to clean up my stove since I made a terrible mess. So I'm just checking the bread. It's rising very well. It has some more rising to do. It's gonna let it rise some more. Right back in here because it's actually doing really well in the oven. Just the oven light on. Wow, those look good. But they got a little bit more rise to give me. A little bit more. So we're going to let them rise some more. Wow, the oven's preheating. Okay, the oven is preheated, and it does look like we got a little bit more rise out of it. So now I'm going to score the tops, and I'm going to do it like Ruthanne did and use a clean razor blade. Okay, so we're just going to take this and score across the top a bit. That just gives it room to expand so that it doesn't crack. Okay, we're just going to put it in the oven. And don't pay attention to my dirty oven. A little bit bigger, some bigger loaf pans. Okay, so we are going to set the timer for 20 minutes, and then we'll be back, turn them around, and bake for another 15. Oh my goodness. Oh, it smells amazing. Look at that. Pretty. We're going to take it out and turn it around so it gets even baking. Now, Ruthanne, I keep calling her Kate, but Kate is the one who actually came up with this recipe. This is Ruthanne that I was watching the video. She uses a thermometer to test the bread on the inside to assure that it gets 90 degrees, or at least 190 to 200 degrees. Now, problem is, my son has my meat thermometer. I want you to see this bread. Oh my gosh, that is beautiful. Well, it's done. I wasn't able to record taking it out of the oven and brushing it with butter. I was on the phone and with one of my YouTube buddies, and but here it is. And my house smells fine. Smells fine. So I can't wait for it to cool. We're about to go get something to eat, and then we're gonna come back home and we're gonna cut one of these loaves.